Fix this now, it's not funny, my dad spat after finding out I cut off all financial support. Take a cab home, loser, I replied. Next day, I got 64 text messages. I stood frozen in the airport terminal, staring at my phone in disbelief. The message glared back at me, each word a slap across my face. Have a nice taxi ride home, loser. My father's number, his words, punctuated with a laughing emoji as if this was all some hilarious joke. The bustling airport continued around me, travelers rushing past with their rolling suitcases, announcements echoing overhead. None of it registered. I was trapped in a bubble of confusion that quickly hardened into rage. 10 minutes earlier, I'd approached the check-in counter with my passport in hand, ready to join my family for our annual vacation to the Bahamas. A tradition we'd maintained since I was 12. 15 years of memories, sunburns, and family photos. I'm sorry, sir. I don't see your reservation in our system. The airline attendant's concerned expression should have been my first clue. Her fingers clacked across the keyboard, searching for my name. That's impossible, I'd said. My parents booked the tickets months ago. More typing. A phone call to a supervisor, sympathetic glances that made my stomach sink. It appears your ticket was canceled 3 days ago. Canceled, not lost or misplaced. Deliberately removed from the system by someone who had access to the booking. My parents. The phone in my palm vibrated again. Another message. Don't look so shocked. You should have seen this coming after what you did. What I did. My mind raced through recent interactions with my family. Arguments, maybe, disagreements, sure, but nothing that warranted this level of betrayal. The only recent tension had been about this very vacation. 2 weeks ago, over dinner at my parents' house, the house whose mortgage I helped pay, I'd mentioned I might need to join the vacation a day late due to an important client meeting. But it's tradition, Gary, my mother had said, her fork pausing midway to her mouth. We always fly together. I know, Mom, but this client could mean a huge promotion for me. More money? My father laughed. What do you need more money for? You're already doing well enough to help us out. There it was, the casual acknowledgement of my financial support without any real gratitude. Just an expectation that it would continue indefinitely. I called my mother, straight to voicemail. My father, the same. My sister's phone rang but disconnected after 2 rings. She'd seen my name and declined the call. They were already at the gate, or on the plane, without me. A family vacation minus 1 family member. I shoved my phone into my pocket and walked out of the terminal into the harsh summer heat. The humidity wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I loosened my collar and hailed a cab, giving the driver my address in a voice I barely recognized as my own. During the ride home, I pieced together what little information I had. My family had planned this. They'd coordinated their betrayal down to the mocking text messages. They wanted me to feel this shame, this anger, this hurt. What they didn't realize was that they'd just made a catastrophic mistake. Because while they were off enjoying their vacation on pristine beaches, they'd forgotten one crucial detail. I was the one keeping our family financially afloat. I paid for my sister Nicole's college tuition every semester, without fail. I had fronted my brother Scott the money for his upcoming wedding, a substantial amount that he was supposedly going to pay back eventually. And my parents, the mortgage on their house had my name on it. Their car payments came from my account. The credit card they were undoubtedly using right now to order overpriced cocktails by the pool. I paid that bill too. All of it done quietly, generously, because that's what family does for each other, or so I thought. By the time the taxi pulled up to my downtown apartment, my hurt had crystallized into something harder, colder, more calculated. I tipped the driver generously. At least someone would benefit from my family's cruelty today. Inside my apartment, I kicked off my shoes and went straight to my home office. I booted up my computer and pulled up my banking information. With methodical precision, I began severing financial ties. My fingers hesitated over the keyboard. Was I really going to do this? These weren't strangers I was cutting off. This was my flesh and blood. The same people who had bandaged my scraped knees as a child, who had cheered at my graduation, who had called me their golden boy whenever I bailaid them out of their latest financial crisis. But that warmth had always been conditional, hadn't it? Available only when I was useful to them. A voice in my head, the one that had always pushed me to be the responsible one, the provider, the good son, whispered that I was overreacting, that families fight and forgive, that I should be bigger than this. My stomach clenched as I remembered the last family dinner before this planned vacation. How they'd raised glasses to family togetherness while already plotting to leave me behind. The calculated betrayal made my hands shake with renewed anger. I called Nicole's university and canceled the automatic payment for next semester's tuition. With each digit I pressed, I questioned myself. Was I punishing my sister for my parents' sins? But then I remembered her declined call at the airport. She knew. She was part of it. I logged into my investment account and reversed the transfer earmarked for Scott's wedding venue deposit. My brother, who had borrowed money from me since we were teenagers, never repaying, always expecting more. The same brother who couldn't even send me a warning text about their plan. I removed my name as an authorized user on my parents' credit cards. Cards that somehow always reached their limit before I received my own statements. The pit in my stomach deepened with each action, a mix of guilt and vindication wrestling within me. And I drafted an email to my family's mortgage lender, explaining that I would no longer be making payments on a home that wasn't my primary residence. The home where family photos lined the walls, photos that included me, smiling, unaware that my role was merely that of a walking ATM. My phone buzzed again. I expected more taunting. Instead, it was a notification from my banking app. My mother had just attempted to make a purchase at a resort boutique. Declined. It had begun. I smiled for the first time since entering the airport that morning. Then I turned off my phone, drew the blinds, and decided to enjoy my unexpected staycation. 3 days passed in blissful silence. I caught up on sleep, binged a new series, and ordered delivery from restaurants I'd been meaning to try. On the 4th day, my phone, which I'd finally turned back on, exploded with notifications. 37 missed calls, 64 text messages, 23 voicemails. I listened to the first voicemail, my mother's voice, initially calm but with an undercurrent of panic. "Gary, honey, there seems to be an issue with the cards. Call me back." The second voicemail, recorded 2 hours later, had lost all pretense of calm. "Gary, what did you do? Everything's declined. We're stranded at the resort." By the 10th message, she was crying. By the 15th, my father had taken over, his anger palpable even through the tiny speaker. "Fix this now, Gary. This isn't funny anymore." I deleted the rest without listening. Then I scrolled through the text messages, watching their journey from confusion to realization to desperation. The final text from my father read simply, "We're coming home early." Good, let them come home to their new reality. I didn't meet them at the airport, didn't answer when they knocked at my door later that evening. Instead, I watched through the peephole as my father's face grew redder with each unanswered knock. "I know you're in there, Gary." His voice was muffled through the door. "Open up so we can talk about this like adults." Adults didn't abandon family members at airports. Adults didn't send mocking texts. Adults didn't behave like petty, vindictive children. I remained silent until they finally left. The next morning, I received an email from Nicole. The subject line read, "Emergency." I opened it, curious about what approach she would take. "Gary, I don't know what's going on between you and Mom and Dad, but please don't take it out on me. My tuition payment is due in 2 weeks, and I can't lose my spot in the program. I've worked too hard. This isn't fair." Fair, an interesting choice of word. Was it fair that they'd left me behind without warning? Was it fair that they'd mocked my confusion and hurt? Was it fair that they'd treated me like an outsider in my own family while simultaneously relying on my financial support? I closed the email without responding. Scott called next. I let it ring through to voicemail. "Hey bro, it's me. Look, I know you're upset about something, and I get it. But the venue is threatening to give away our date if we don't make the payment this week. This is my wedding, man. Don't punish Alexis for whatever this is." Alexis, his fiancée, the only innocent party in all of this. I felt a twinge of remorse, but then hardened myself against it. Scott had made his choice when he participated in their airport scheme. The days that followed tested my resolve. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, heart racing, wondering if I'd gone too far. I'd reach for my phone, fingers hovering over the keyboard, composing messages I never sent. I'd been raised to believe that family was everything, that we stuck together through thick and thin, that forgiveness was not just a virtue but an obligation. But what happened when that family saw you as nothing more than a resource to be used? What happened when their love came with invoices attached? I thought of all the times I'd sacrificed for them, delaying my own dreams to help fund theirs, working overtime to cover their emergencies, living in a smaller apartment than I could afford because so much of my income went to supporting 4 other adults. My anger would reignite, burning away the doubt. A week passed, then another. I went to work, came home, lived my life. Without the constant drain of supporting 4 additional adults, my bank account began to grow. I scheduled a meeting with a financial advisor to discuss investment opportunities. Life continued, lighter somehow. But the guilt never fully disappeared. It lurked in the shadows of my mind, ready to pounce during quiet moments. The voice of my grandmother, who had raised us all to believe that family was sacred, whispered accusations of betrayal. Had I become just like them? I started seeing a therapist. She listened without judgment as I poured out the whole sordid tale. "It sounds like you've been in a codependent relationship with your entire family," she observed during our 3rd session. "They've trained you to feel responsible for their happiness and financial well-being." Her words stayed with me, challenging years of conditioning. I began to see patterns I'd been blind to before. The subtle manipulation tactics. The way they'd isolate me from friends who questioned why I gave them so much. The guilt they'd instill whenever I tried to set boundaries. Then came the escalation I'd been expecting. I arrived home one evening to find Scott sitting on the floor outside my apartment door. He looked terrible, unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled as if he'd slept in them. He scrambled to his feet when he saw me. "Gary, thank God, I've been calling and texting for weeks." I looked at him without expression. "I know. Why haven't you answered? Do you have any idea what you've done?" I inserted my key into the lock, deliberately slow. "I have an excellent idea of what I've done. The wedding venue canceled on us. Alexis is devastated. Her parents think I'm some kind of deadbeat who can't even secure a venue, let alone support their daughter." I pushed the door open. "That sounds difficult." "Difficult? It's a nightmare, and Nicole might have to drop out of her program. Mom and Dad are talking about selling the house, all because you're having some kind of tantrum." I stepped into my apartment and turned to face him. A memory flashed, Scott teaching me to skateboard when we were kids. His patience as I fell repeatedly. His genuine joy when I finally managed to stay upright. What had happened to that brother? "Take a cab home, loser." Then I closed the door on his shocked face, echoing the words my father had so carelessly texted me. The banging started immediately. Scott's fists pounding on my door, his voice rising to a shout. "Gary, open the damn door. You can't do this to us." I turned on my sound system to drown him out and made dinner. By the time I'd finished eating, the hallway outside was silent again. That night I dreamed of my family. We were on the beach, laughing, building sandcastles like we used to during those early vacations. My father clapped me on the shoulder, proud. My mother hugged me, warm and unconditional. Nicole and Scott flanked me, the 4 of us united. Then the tide came in, washing away the sandcastles. My family turned to me, expectant. "Fix it, Gary," they demanded in unison. "Build it again, bigger, better." I woke up in a cold sweat, the dream memory of sand still between my fingers. That night, I received a group text from my mother. She'd created a family chat excluding me, but someone, probably Scott in his anger, had added my number. "Mom, Gary is clearly having some kind of breakdown. We need to approach this delicately." "Dad, delicate isn't working. It's been 3 weeks. Scott, he quoted your text back to me. Take a cab home, loser. He's doing this on purpose. Nicole, we need to fix this. My academic advisor says if I don't secure funding by next week, I'll lose my spot. Mom, maybe we should involve Aunt Catherine. Gary always liked her." I exited the chat without responding, but not before taking screenshots. Evidence of their manipulation, their refusal to acknowledge what they'd done to trigger this situation. The next day, flowers arrived at my office. My mother's attempt at reconciliation. I gave them to my assistant and threw away the card without reading it. 2 days later, my father showed up at my workplace. I instructed security not to let him pass the lobby. By the end of the month, the tactics shifted. My brother's wedding was downgraded from the luxury resort to his fiancée's parents' backyard. Nicole had to take a leave of absence from her program, and my parents started listing household items on online marketplaces to cover their mortgage. Reality was setting in. They weren't getting their cash cow back. Part of me, the part that had been conditioned to feel responsible for them, ached at their struggles. But my therapist's voice countered the guilt. They're adults. They made choices. They can find solutions that don't involve exploiting you. She was right. My father, a former accountant, could easily return to work instead of the early retirement I'd been subsidizing. My mother's part-time job at her friend's boutique could become full-time. Nicole could get a student loan like millions of other college students. Scott could scale back his wedding plans to something he could actually afford. They had options, they just didn't want to use them. Then came a final, desperate attempt. My mother called on a Sunday morning. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Gary, honey," she began, her voice soft and trembling. The familiar tone she'd always used when trying to smooth over problems, when trying to manipulate me into compliance. I said nothing, just listened to her breathing on the other end of the line. "We miss you so much," she continued. "Your father is too proud to say it, but he cries at night. He misses his son." My throat tightened. Images flashed through my mind, Dad teaching me to ride a bike, helping with science projects, proudly introducing me to his friends at company picnics. The same man who had texted loser to his own son. "Nicole had to move back home," my mother went on, her voice cracking. "Her roommate's family is taking over her portion of the rent. She's sleeping in her childhood bedroom again, all her hard work wasted." A pang of guilt shot through me. Nicole was only 22, still finding her way. Had I been too harsh? And Scott, her voice dropped to a whisper. "Alexis's parents are talking about postponing the wedding indefinitely. They don't think he's stable enough financially. They're encouraging her to reconsider the engagement." I closed my eyes, picturing Scott's face when he'd showed up at my door. The desperation, the shock when I'd thrown our father's words back at him. "Gary, please," she said, her voice raw from crying now. "We're your family. Blood isn't just something you can turn your back on. Remember what Grandma always said. Family is the only ship that never sinks." My grandmother, the woman who had taught me the value of hard work, who had slipped me $20 bills for something special when I was growing up, who had made me promise to look after my parents when she was gone. "Whatever we did, we're sorry. We weren't thinking. Can't we go back to how things were? We can make it up to you. Your father said you can have his collector's watches, all of them, and I'll make your favorite meals every Sunday if you'll just come over." Her voice had taken on a frantic quality, not the concern of a mother for her son's well-being, but the panic of someone watching her safety net disappear. "Gary, are you still there?" I let the silence stretch between us, remembering the humiliation of standing at that airport counter. The mocking text, the coordinated freeze-out, and more years of being valued only for what I could provide. Love with conditions attached. A relationship built on what I could give, not who I was. "Now you know what it feels like to be left behind," I said finally. "Gary, wait." But I had already hung up. My hand shook as I navigated to my contact list and blocked her number. A heaviness settled in my chest, not regret exactly, but the acknowledgement that some doors, once closed, should remain that way. That afternoon, I visited a travel agency and booked a solo trip to Bali. Something I'd always wanted to do, but had never found the time or money for while supporting my family. As I left the agency with my itinerary in hand, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: freedom. The lightness of living for myself rather than carrying the burden of others' choices. My family had taught me an invaluable lesson, though not the one they intended. They showed me that I'd been confusing obligation with love, dependency with connection. Standing on that busy sidewalk, travel plans in hand and future wide open, I finally recognized the gift hidden inside their betrayal. They had released me from the chains I'd forged myself. I walked home through the city streets, breathing deeply for what felt like the first time in years. Free. Family isn't just about blood. It's about mutual respect. It's about genuine care that flows both ways. And sometimes the family we're born into isn't capable of providing that. That doesn't make you obligated to sacrifice your life at their altar. Learn to recognize the difference between healthy support and toxic sacrifice. Your worth isn't measured by how much you give or how much pain you endure. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is to stand alone rather than be crushed together. I'm still learning this lesson every day. But for the first time in my life, I'm living it too.